IBA webinar on the topic of future-proofing insurance through the use of modern-day insurance core systems. We are going to explore a broad range of topics on this particular interesting part of the insurance industry, and we encourage and would like to encourage you all to engage with us using the comment facility on your LinkedIn session. If you write your questions or your comments in the LinkedIn comment section, then we will be able to use that as part of our webinar today, and we'll be more than happy to address whatever questions you might have on the topics that we are discussing today. Helping me today in exploring the topic of modern day core insurance solutions is Fabio Sajico from Celent, joining us from Northeast US, as well as Søren Jans, who's CTO of IBA. And Fabio, just to get us going, please briefly introduce yourself and tell us what you have experienced in the insurance industry just recently that you're looking forward to unfold with us today.
Hi, Niels. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. So, Fabio Sajico here. I'm an insurance analyst at Celent. We are a research and advisory firm that focuses in financial services and how to leverage technology for the business. In my case, I belong to the insurance vertical. I've been in the company for 10 years. And my main area of research is related to core systems, right? Core system modernizations and so forth. So we produce constantly evaluation of solutions across the globe. In my particular case, specifically focusing on the EMEA region and Latin America. And we also do a lot of consulting projects, helping insurance company understanding how to best select a core system vendor. So I'm very excited to be here. I hope to be able to collaborate with you guys on sharing some of the views that we have and also listening to you in your points of view.
Thank you, Fabio, and thank you for taking the time to join us today. And Søren, could you also please introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you, Niels. Thank you for having me here as well. So Søren Jans is my name, CTO of IBA, the original founder, company I founded some 15 years ago. A route that has been truly interesting, and ever since the very beginning I've headed up development and provisioning of IB Suite and continue to do so today, so I'm really pleased to be here.
And thank you very much for joining. And my name is Niels Trzaski. I'm a head of sales in IBA, and I've been spending something like the last 20 years being a technology provider to the more or less global non-life insurance industry. So to me, all problems that you might experience in the insurance industry has something to do with technology, and I'm trying to translate the challenges of insurance industry to something that can be addressed using a technology solution. So that's sort of our starting point for today. And in order to kick off today's conversation, Fabio, I would like to ask you, when you talk about insurance core systems, and the term core system almost has a legacy ring to it. I mean, I'm sure that both the audience and as well as many other people, when they talk about core system, they think about this mainframe monolith that we all dealt with some time back. So what is really the role of insurance core system in the modern day insurers IT estate? Where are we with the modern core insurance systems?
That's a great point, Niels. I think it's important to understand that at the most fundamental level, right? It serves as and especially that core systems tend to be made out of modules, right? But if we think at the main one, which is the policy administration system, it's a system of records for all policies that an insurance company, has written and is going to write in the future. So, you can think of things like, object of insurance coverage, limits, conditions, exclusions, duration of the policy, endorsements, and so forth. So you need that type of repository of records in order for you to operate as an insurance company, right? You have to do with processes like renewal, termination, cancellation, restatement. And those are all core processes that are being supported I think it's important to say that, of course, when you say core system, and even in some different countries and regions, you have different understanding of what that means. I think the most popular one and the one that we use at Celent is a combination of modules, right? We can think of the policy administration model that I said, billing, claims, and reinsurance. We tend to say that those are the key ones that create the concept of core insurance. Of course, that those modules can be offered in different ways. Like you said, in the aspect of being some way legacy, you have the monolithic way where it used to be just a big block, right, sharing the same database and so forth, where insurance company would need to work with that block and would not have the flexibility or the integration capabilities that today's world requires. However, with the time, we start agency of the modern core systems, if you sort of speak, that is the decoupling of those modules, a change in architecture, microservices architecture, that brings the independency of those modules. That is much easier to update, much more flexible, so you can have different approach to system modernizations. Of course, again, there is always regional flavors to this. In the United States, for instance, you have the best of breed that combine those from multiple vendors. Some other countries may be more resistant to that and go into an end-to-end from a particular vendor. But I think to answer your question is, I'm a person that likes analogies a lot. So I think it's just like with cell phones, right? Cell phones tends to be used to be a way that we could communicate through voice and text, pretty much it, right? And then we have the concept of phones where we start to have the phone working to connect you to the world. So you have a lot of applications within that ecosystem of your phone that allows you to know which direction you should be going. For instance, you have the GPS there. If you want to know how long you're going to take to get from point A to point B, if you have a better route, I think that's the concept of core system in modern days, right? It's an ecosystem that allows you to make better decisions based on multiple factors, especially leveraging the third-party data that you may have, the integrations and the ecosystem that the core system vendors offers to you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Fabio. And Søren, as you mentioned, 15 years ago when you founded IBA, you essentially were in a situation where you could decide what you want to do with your life and where you wanted to dedicate yourself and where you want to put your effort. And you decided to develop an insurance core system. Why?
So I think that when you are in a situation like that, you look at, well, the first thing we saw, I think we saw, and I saw, there was a hole in the market. There was something that we didn't really cater for. And when you have a challenge or a problem, there's really three things you can do about it, right? You can leave it be and you can live with it, or you can try to replicate it and do it a little bit better, or you can try to change it. And that time, my vision was to change it, and my vision was to create a platform that was truly a platform and not just an application to be deployed. Something that would help insurers with running their business, something that would help insurers focus on what they do right, which is managing insurance, doing reinsurance deals, managing the relationship with customers, focus on the customer journey, managing claims and so on and so forth, and not dealing with IT, not dealing with security and compliance, not dealing with hardware and these kind of things. And I think we saw that hole in the market where there was probably a lot of good capabilities in classic core systems, but there wasn't really any core system that to that extent would help insurers run their business without being tech people. And at the same time, the type of product we were starting to see being provisioned, and with the speed you had to provision them at that time, there's really no core systems that did that. So in the telecommunications days, even, let's just say go 20 years back, it was, back then bandwidth was just about to become a commodity, but it wasn't. We were talking about, short message services. We were talking about premium content to be delivered over the cell phone. And that was what we had. We didn't have the iPhone. We didn't have anything. But for the telcos back then, it was all about bringing new services to the market quickly. That's what we see in insurance today. We see that there's a need to bring new services, new insurance, new products to the market quickly, because if you don't, someone else is going to take it up. And I think that's what we saw back then, and we decided not to replicate any existing models, but we decided actually to leverage on the knowledge we had from the telco industry and how we would start to apply that model in insurance to create a truly adoptable and configurable platform.
And at that time, when you founded IBA, which other paths did you choose compared to what was available at that time to ensure that what you were going to develop would be better and more modern than the alternatives?
So it's a good question, because it's always hard to say if you see the full truth and the full picture at that point in time. When you start to look at systems like IB Suite and like other systems out there, you look at capabilities and functionality first. And see, that's important, and that's kind of a given. It's the entry criteria that how to work with a policy life cycle, how you handle endorsements, renewals, billing processes, and so forth. That's key capabilities that everybody needs to have. What we thought there was a need to do was also to free the insurers for the legacy, essentially. And so the key path we took was to say we wanted to be software as a service. I can't say that we wanted to be fully cloud native and everything back then, because cloud wasn't really where it is today, right? So Azure wasn't really there, Google Cloud was not really there, Amazon was there with EC2 and S3 and these kind of things, and that was about it. So it's a total different market today, but we wanted to be cloud, and we wanted to be software as a service, and we wanted to take the complexity away from the insurers. And there was a couple of key things that we really wanted to do. We wanted to take away the issues with constantly upgrading technology platforms and upgrading your core system, and then ensuring the backward compatibility. And what does that mean? So in the ERP world, it means that every second, third year, you'll go through a massive upgrade of your core system or your ERP platform. And what you're going to do is you're going to upgrade the technology. Maybe you're going to invest in new hardware, and you're going to do a massive technology upgrade. You're going to spend an enormous amount of resources testing that everything will continue to work as it used to. You have not yet started to realize the benefits of the new capabilities you're getting. That comes afterwards. So you're spending millions and millions of dollars doing just that, and you haven't added any business value at that point. So we wanted to take that away, and I think that's a key thing. And ever since the beginning, we've been deploying a software as a service. We're operating now fully multi-tenanted in the cloud, fully secure, data is fully separated, and we're not having upgrade projects that hit the customers. But we are upgrading every single month. Actually, every 14 days, we're adding capabilities and features to the platform, and there's no downtime.
So, excellent. So with that now established, that insurance core system remains to play a role in the modern day insurers' IT estate. And there's certainly benefits to achieve by having a modern core system. And by the way, the cores that is offered today are vastly different from what used to be, or what we like today to refer to as legacy cores. So we'll leave that behind. Fabio, switching from a legacy platform to a modern day insurance core system clearly requires an investment on the behalf of the insurers. Which advice can you offer insurers on how to unlock the value of that investment? So once the transition has been done, what can insurers do to prepare to unlock the value? And is there any technology available today that wasn't available previously that can help insurers quickly unlock the value of the investments that they've made?
That's a great question, Yus. I think, and just on the previous topic, we definitely at Celent, we see the core system as something like the heart for the human body, right? So we want to clarify that you still need that. Now we have a modern core systems that is very different from the legacy ones like you guys were just talking about. And I think when we think about benefits of core systems, I think the core systems exist because we need to achieve business goals, right? So it's important to say that in terms of business goals, At Celent, we interact often with insurance companies. We conduct primary research, and in 2024, and talking about European insurance companies, is that the priorities revolves around supporting growth, protecting against cyber threats, meeting regulatory requirements, and also cost reduction became increasingly important with the pressure to generate more businesses at higher margins. So I think it's important to understand that yet a a big part of the IT budgets from insurance companies in Europe are still being consumed by maintaining and updating existing systems, even though some may have gone through the process of modernization of some of those systems. They still have to work with some legacy systems around their architecture. So those are all barriers that you have to face. And I think that once you start to unlock the value of the core system, like you're just saying, connecting with those goals of achieving growth, of being more efficient, reducing costs, we can think of some aspects of it. So I think the main one that I would like to start is the role of automation. I think the trend in the industry is to push for automation everywhere as possible. So, for instance, in policy administration, we can automate the process of policy issuance, renewals, endorsement, cancellations. We can ensure accuracy and reducing and processing time with that, which leads for faster service for customers, which is also a big concern, enhancing their overall experience. In underwriting, for instance, there is a growing need to enhance efficiency and decision-making capabilities. In terms of automation, we can streamline underwriting processes that allow for full automation of simple cases while requiring human intervention for more complex scenarios. The same is for claims, right? Modern core systems can integrate with third-party service and AI technology that can enhance the claims handling process for more complex cases, improving fraud detection capabilities, for instance, or having a positive impact consequently in growth and cost reduction, and ultimately benefiting customers through a faster and better claims resolution process. So I think that the automation piece that is right there today is very important. I think also another aspect that wasn't present before has to do with the integration with APIs, right? The ecosystem that is being built by the core system vendors that wasn't there before. So we refer, for instance, at Celent, that the next generation insurance company will create their own ecosystem. So just mirroring what the core system vendors are doing, the own insurance company will be doing that as well. And for that, you need to have a strong technology infrastructure that relies heavily on, for instance, microservices and containers, open and external integrations through API, cloud computing, and etc. You need flexibility, scalability. So the concept of application allows, for example, for insurance to accelerate time to market and enhance distribution channels capabilities. So to give you a very real example of how to unlock that, if you have that infrastructure, if you have a modern core system, you're ready for something, for instance, like embedded insurance, right? That is something that we have different views in the industry as expert of the potential of embedded insurance, but every estimation I have seen is very powerful in terms of the impact it will have, and it's already started to have and will have in the future. So pretty much the concept of being able to distribute your insurance products at the right time, at the right moment that a client needs, and that is not necessarily your client, right? That can be a client from any other industries, and you have this EIP, which is the embedded insurance partner, distribute your product, put your product conveniently in front of the client at the moment that you need, and you can have this completely automated process from underwriting to claims and etc., which can bring you a lot of efficiency and cost reduction on your operation. So I think that's a very powerful case. And unless I think empowering business user is another thing that we see in core systems, in modern ones specifically, which are allowing business users to make changes to the system without having to rely on IT support like in the past, which, again, brings efficiency, reduce time to market, and can respond more quickly to customer needs. And maybe to finalize on that, I think it's important to talk about, of course, the AI and the Gen AI, especially comparing to the past, right? So AI is becoming increasingly integral to the modern core systems. We have vendors taking different directions. Some vendors goes like with more of a more focusing on building the ecosystem with specialized solutions, while we have other vendors doing that, but also creating their own capabilities. And just to give some examples of the benefits of that for customer experience, for instance, that is already available, is, suggestions of additional coverage that a client may need, summarize insurance policies in clear language. We all know that insurance language is not accessible and not very fun. Simplifying, these complex terms for better understanding for clients. You can conduct, for instance, sentimental analysis to gauge customer satisfaction. You can improve risk assessment with more personalized offering, right? Because I think when we think about where the industry is going and what insurance companies are trying to achieve in terms of customer experience, it has a lot to do with personalization. So, knowledge is power. Those modern core systems today can give you a great amount of integrations with third-party data that allows you to know your customer best, have a 360 view, and therefore better knowledge, better risk assessment, better segmentation, better personalization, and so forth.
So, as mentioned in my introduction, I love to address real business issues or business challenges with technology solutions. And I just took note that you mentioned a couple of business challenges and you immediately tied a technology solution to that, which is absolutely fantastic. So you mentioned ecosystem, and the prerequisite of being able to orchestrate an ecosystem is that you have superior integration facilities, and you mentioned microservices, so that's good. And you mentioned automation. So the importance of unlocking value through process automation, improving operational efficiencies, and obviously you need to have facilities in your core that allows you to do so. And you mentioned the importance of allowing business users to make changes in the system to be able to increase agility and meet customer expectations quickly and efficiently. So those are excellent points, Fabio. And Søren, being in the receiving end of Fabio's suggestions here, what's your reflections on that?
So I think it fits well with the with the way we see the world. Essentially, I think there are some good points around connectivity, microservices, APIs, and what have you. If you're not open to the world with APIs, you're not open to anything. Essentially, I think that's a key element. When we talk about AI as an example, I think a lot of people tend to confuse the adoption of AI with just doing automation. And there's different types of automation. You can just automate things. And if you've got good rules and everything, and you've got that configured, then there's no reason to apply AI to doing that. But where you really want to leverage AI is to augment human behavior while doing automation. So, do you want to suggest additional covers in a renewal process or in an underwriting or sales process? Do you want to handle next best action in a claims process? So you want to use AI in a way that it assists a human being. So we have to remember part of AI is artificial. So we've all been, 2-3 years ago, AI wasn't really there, right? But all of a sudden it was, and more or less from one day to the other, and it was everywhere. It was on Snapchat. It was ChatGPT coming out. It was everywhere. And I think we've all tried to have this conversation from time to time. Well, at least I have tried to have a conversation. Probably says more about me than anyone else with ChatGPT, right? He's sitting there saying, so what can we do? And I'm having that conversation with ChatGPT is absolutely fantastic and fun, and we've seen what we can do today. It becomes somewhat artificial from time to time. It's pretty easy to see. When you want to leverage AI, for instance, in an insurance ecosystem, it's important to narrow down the scope of what it needs to do. It needs only to focus on that. Actually, it doesn't have to worry about the American election. Actually, it doesn't have to worry about recipes, or it doesn't have to worry about anything else. It has to worry about insurance and the context of the customer. And it's always been so. The more data you put into that, the better. So that's a true and a good way to start leveraging AI to excel in customer service and augment human behavior. I think that's absolutely crucial.
Yeah, good points. And actually, Fabio, on the topic of unlocking value, and we just had a very interesting question from one of our viewers here that I would like you to address right now, because it really is on the topic of unlocking value. And the question is not defining in any way how long time it takes to make the transformation from whatever legacy you're on to a modern core system. Not going into details with that, but simply addressing what can you do to accelerate it. So regardless how long time you're planning it will take, what can you do to do it faster?
That's an excellent question, and I think it goes to the different possibilities that you have, right? I think there is no one answer fits all here. The acceleration of the core system modernization, I think, goes with also the componentization and the appification. Because before, when we were talking about the monolithic world, right, you need to do a completely migration of your system into a new one that needed to be installed with all its components. I think today you have some routes that you can take, right? There is one which is known as the middle layer, which we see as the acceleration route, which basically is you can literally kill your, I mean, not literally, but you can kill your legacy system gradually, right? So you do not need to go all the way through it. You have the opportunity to keep the record piece and start having middle layers to connect, especially if you have multiple core systems, which is a reality for many insurers. You have core A, B, C, D, and you can have a orchestration layer or API layer connecting your back end with your front end. So that's one way that we've seen. We have also seen, especially this is more often seen in the life insurance world, but nevertheless we have P&C cases as well, which is the greenfield approach, right? I start with the implementation of a new core systems just for some new business, and I still keep operating with my previous core system for a while until I do the data migration, which is one of the most complicated cases. I think those are some aspects of how you can accelerate the process. I also think that moving forward, and that is, I don't think it's a reality yet, but we're going to see also Gen AI playing a key role on accelerating, facilitating, and reducing costs, for instance, on data migration. So I think that's something that will also enable, especially, smaller insurance companies with more limited budgets to conduct such big transformation without having to go into a budget that is out of their possibility for the moment. So I think it's a combination of possibilities. No one size fits all, but definitely technology nowadays allows for a much faster and easier and cheaper way of addressing the core system modernization. I don't know if that addressed the questions the way it should, or if you have additional questions on that news, on any additional points.
I think it was really interesting, but there's one thing on the topic of transformation that I think we also need to put on the table. And in the same conversation where you're talking about Gen AI, you talk about innovative initiatives, you also need to talk about data migration. And I know, Søren, we live in the real world where we're dealing with those kind of challenges in every project that we do. So what's your thought on how to accelerate transformations by using more innovative approach to data migration?
Well, I think that the most important thing is don't be scared of data migration, but be focused on that there's always a need for you to be in control of your data and get the quality right and these kind of things. We are using a number of great tools for data migration, and a lot of people tend to talk about data migration and saying, well, we want to do data migration only at renewal because it reduces the risk. Well, it may reduce the risk, but 12 migrations at renewal is, you could be considered 12 big bangs. So that's going to be 12 data migrations. You're going to have the issues around running systems in parallel and splitting data that comes in, and what system should take care of the requests coming in and these kind of things. So we're trying to focus on the data coming in and creating a canonical model out of that to ensure that we've got the right data quality, the formatting of the data is correct, and these kind of things. And we can replay that again and again and again and again. In the past, it was really so that data migration was a huge effort first to get the data out of the existing system. And then you would do a little bit of transformation and try to pump that into the target system. But you weren't really focusing so much on cleansing your data, on making sure that it was the right data and that would fit in. You would very often try to fit it in the same model in the new system that it was in the old system. because there were so many limitations. So you didn't have the computer power to help you make the decisions, to help you look at the data, understand the data, and so forth. We do have that today, and that eases the process of doing data migrations. So I'm, to be honest, I'm a great fan of a data migration. I'm not too scared of it. The reason why my hair turns gray is most probably because we've done a few, but I think it's a different era today than it was 20 years ago.
Excellent. If there's more questions out there, if there's something you would like us to talk about in today's conversation, then please let us know. Please use the comment field in the LinkedIn session to write your question or even your comment. I will be more than happy to address your question as part of today's conversation. But Fabio, actually, it's very important for us also to cover another topic, which is of strong interest to us. And it's actually following up on your comments about the dual core and running multiple cores, either in a transformation phase or as a permanent solution to deal with your legacy and so on. Costs, or rather, how to establish the cost of your current operation and how to compare that with the future cost of your modern core insurance system that might be cloud-based and be provisioned to you as on a subscription model and those kind of things. How do you establish the cost of ownership of your existing system, and how do you establish a comparison to the new world in a completely different paradigm?
That's an excellent point, Niels. I think first, before talking about the TCO, I think it's important to think also on the aspect of ROI, right? So those projects not necessarily will have a positive ROI quickly, right? So I think that's crucial to understand, to internalize that, to communicate that clearly. For instance, if you are the CIO of your company looking to start a system modernization process, to communicate that clearly. There are tangibles and intangible benefits that can justify, and I think we can make easily the case that there is a need for modernization, but I think the route is not focusing so much on the ROI, especially in the short term. That being said, because I see that quite often happening, I think when evaluating TCO for core insurance systems, at least at Celent, we tend to look especially at a 5-year period. So we talk about a 5 years TCO, and we like to look at 4 key components, which is what we were just talking about right now, the migration, right? So the migration costs from the legacy to the new core systems, data cleansing, validation, integration costs, and etc. The licensing cost or the licensing fee, the implementation cost, and the maintenance cost. So there are 4 components that we think are crucial when you're looking at the comparison among vendors to establish, for instance, a 5 years TCO. Of course, you may ask, but there are other costs, right, involved, and sure there is. Like you have things such as operational costs, staffing, and other components. But at least at Celent, we tend to suggest that those should be added more on the business case level than the TCO itself. So I think different vendors, and then that's when it starts to get quite interesting. Even if you take those 4 components, you're going to see that vendors tend to have different strategies, meaning that some may charge much more for services, others much more for licensing, and etc. So just to illustrate that, I think it would be interesting to bring up some real case examples, real life examples, to illustrate how that happens. So I think I can think of 3 cases, one from the London market, one from Spain, and one from Saudi Arabia. So to start, for instance, with the case from a tier 2 insurance company in Spain. Of course, I cannot name the insurance company, it's confidential, but I think that's not relevant here. What is relevant is the example. So we can, for instance, in this case, they were considering pretty much 2 vendors only in the process at this stage. And to give you some ideas on implementation, vendor A, I'm going to call vendor A and vendor B. Vendor A had the implementation cost around $11 million. The vendor B had it at 20.4 million. Then when you look at migration, we had vendor A at 1.6 million and the vendor B at 1 million. In licensing, we see that vendor A is actually much more expensive than vendor B, differently from the other items. Vendor A licensing was around 4 million, while vendor B was 600,000. So it's a major discrepancy there. And then in maintenance, vendor A was cheaper again with 670,000 versus 1.5 million from vendor B. So despite the fact that in licensing, vendor A was much more expensive, when you look at the total of those, the sum of those four components in a 5-year TCO, you had vendor A at 17.3 million, while vendor B was at 23.5. So, that's the interesting aspect. So you need to make sure that you consider the right components and you understand the differences. And also it may allow the insurance company to understand the gaps where they may be able to negotiate or not. I think we can bring up now the second case from Saudi Arabia. In this case, it was a greenfield initiative, illustrating a little bit of what I said, that some vendors, some insurance company tends to say, okay, I need to keep operating. I cannot afford the system migration right now. So I'm going to do that gradually. I'm going to select a new core system. I'm going to implement that. But as for new lines of business, and I will gradually migrate the existing business into the new system eventually. And this was the case for this one. So in this case, they had 4 vendors and the comparison of the TCO, and those varied from 3.5 million to 10 million. So again, a big difference, right? So just licensing alone, if we look just at that component, the cheapest vendor was licensing it at 1.7 million and the most expensive one at 6.6 million. And implementation, it ranged everywhere from 0.8 million to 2.7 million. So here again, you see how that varies a lot. And I think that's what makes this process of system selection so interesting. And I'm sure we're going to be able to address that in the future. And then lastly, to close, the London market case, we have, again, a tier 2 insurance that were considering 6 vendors at that stage. And they look at the 5-year TCO, and it was ranging from 13 million from the cheapest vendor to 40 million in total from the most expensive one. So, it's important to also mention that when you look at TCO, we're looking at one-time costs, such as implementation and customizations, for instance, and as well a recurrence cost that would be something like licensing and the maintenance and support. So I think that what I want to illustrate here is that you need to first make sure that you understand the concept of ROI in such a complex project, to not create expectations that are not realistic. Understand what type of budget you have, what type of vendor you're looking for, and then make the correct comparison among them at this stage to understand what the total cost of ownership look like for you with different vendors from different aspects in a 5-year period. So that's a little bit of what I want to initially share.
Sure. And Fabio, in the conversation that we have with insurers across Europe, especially in the comparison with the existing situation. So one thing is the selection between various options that you have looking forward, but in comparison with your existing situation, we find that from time to time, the people that we discuss with might find it challenging to unbundle the cost of the current platform. So they might be subject to subscribing to various group services, or the infrastructure that they are on also does a range of other things and so on. So they find it difficult to actually pinpoint the cost of, in this case, the insurance core system, and isolate that as part of the other costs they might have in the IT. So any advice that you can offer in terms of how to establish a baseline that you can compare the new solution with in terms of your existing situation?
Yeah, I think that goes back. That's a great point, Niels. I think it goes back to what I mentioned in the beginning regarding ROI, right? I think one thing, and the way I addressed the previous question, is the comparison of TCOs among new systems. But then when you think about what you have currently, it's a very complex process, right? Because it's likely that you're looking at an on-premises system if you have a legacy system, right? It's likely that when you're looking for a new system, you're looking for a cloud-based, that's probably software as a service with a yearly, usually subscription fee that you're going to be paying. So there are several things that should be thought of. Right, you're going to be having a different need for internal. That's what we see, right? We see a transition, for instance, in terms of budget allocation from internal IT staff to external, because you're having more and more outsourcing of your needs. So there, in like I mentioned at the beginning, you have tangibles and intangibles benefits. And I think one of the things that you need to see and think of when you're doing such analysis, and I think that that's one of the things that some insurance companies, when we help them through the process of system selection, meaning they already decided to replace their system, and you start talking with the stakeholders about what the new system should have, you see they tend sometimes to replicate what they already have. So they're just looking to increase the efficiency and fix the issues that they have in the current system without thinking of the whole horizon of possibilities that we addressed a little bit in the beginning of the new system. So I think it's a much more change of mindset that you may have. It's not a comparison of apples to apples of, okay, I expand this now and I'm going to probably be expanding this in the future, but the whole new approach that your company will be allowed to, the new world of possibilities of sales, of product developments, of partnerships that you can establish. So I think it's much more of a strategic approach to this than a pure math calculation.
Sure.
That's kind of how we usually tend to see in Celent. I don't know if I went to the right way that you wanted in your question. If not, please feel free to ask additional ones.
Fabio talked about tangible and intangible benefits, but I guess there's also tangible and intangible costs. And as part of your work in IBA, you are provisioning IBA Suite to our customers. And when you look at the activities that you need to perform in order to, in a safe and secure and scalable way, provision IBA Suite to our customers, and I'm especially interested in learning more about the intangible costs that might be difficult to put a number on. What would that be?
So I think one of the benefits that we have is that we can make some of the intangible costs tangible. And that means we will remove some complexity because to, insurers today, and I think Fabio had a very good point when talking about, making some of that a cost of operating a business. So I generally look at this as turning CAPEX into OPEX essentially. And so it becomes to an insurer, intangible cost becomes, a struggle for them because it's hard for them to see, well, how much of the current IT department am I spending? Is there service and hardware and things dedicated to me? What about the license packs and the licenses and what have you, all of that? And how many people do I need to have in support? And what about keeping my network up and running? And what about the audits and all of that? And to be honest, from an insurer's point of view, that becomes somewhat intangible because the business can't necessarily relate to that. I think what we're doing is we've made it tangible because we've taken away the struggle to worry about that. There's no such thing as a CAPEX when it comes to operating in the cloud. So yes, we do have tons of information about how our infrastructure is running. We know exactly how many serverless components, how many endpoints, how much data, how much I/O we need, how much CPU, how much memory, how much bandwidth, and we're constantly monitoring that. And we've got the benefit of being able to scale up and down as it goes along, and we're very much in control. However, we're not provisioning that cost onto the client, onto the customer, and I think that gives tremendous amount of benefits. It's economies of scale essentially that we can apply, and to me, operating in a model where it becomes a service fee and not a license is quite important because that's where you turn CAPEX into OPEX. And the most dramatic example I've ever seen is actually more than 15 years ago, just before we started IBM, we were actually doing a market analysis for a client at the time, looking at an insurance platform for them. And I met with the CEO of that particular company then, and of that provider, and he said to me, well, to get started, it's going to be $2 million. I said, cool, is that the license or anything? No, it's before we'll have a conversation. And we went back and did the calculations and so on and so forth. And obviously it didn't make sense for that particular insurance company and so on and so forth. So we parked that conversation. You got back to me after a couple of months and he said, well, I know I said $2 million. Now it's zero. And to me, that's the true testament of the lack of transparency back then. You don't necessarily, as an end customer, as an insurer, have to understand exactly how the cost is spent. It is more important that you can align it with your business, so it becomes the cost of operating your business, and you don't have to worry about capacity, memory, hardware, and these kind of things. And I think that's a true differentiation in the market today.
And so you discreetly touched upon audits, which translates into compliance, which is a whole different topic that I don't think we have time to explore today. But I guess the cost of an audit is not that high, but not being able to comply with regulation, the cost of that might be enormous.
That's enormous, right? It is. So the cost of an audit is not high. The cost of being ready for an audit is enormous. And again, if everybody has to do the same thing, it's gonna be a multitude of costs to be applied. The impact of not being compliant is tremendous. We've seen that. We've always had data protection laws and things. We've seen the impact of GDPR. We've seen the obviously within financial services, within insurance, and especially in Europe, we see the impact of having to adhere to local financial authorities, IOPA guidelines and things. We see the impact of DORA today as well. And to the individual insurer, small or large, that's an enormous amount of money, an enormous amount of cost for something that's not necessarily the key business. I would argue that managing risk is an insurer's key business, probably also from an IT perspective, but managing everything else around it is not their key business. And them having to deal with that on the side while running their business is just impractical.
So Fabio, we have a number of questions from our viewers that I would like to address while we have time. And one of them actually might or might not, and I'll leave it to you to decide, have something to do with TCO and cost. And so imagine that you are a project manager or you're a business leader and you are evaluating your current legacy platform, and you really have a strong interest in seeing that is being enhanced or transitioned into something new and better. But the question is, what are the arguments that you can bring forward to your sponsors to convince them that now is the time? When is the time to make the investment and do the transformation?
That's an excellent question, and I think the answer is that the time has already passed, right? So I think that would be my first reaction to this. I think it's important to address if you have not undergone a system modernization, you're already behind, especially in the most developed regions. So I think that there is the sense of urgency that is going on. And I think it brings back to what I was describing as the first, I guess, the continuity of the business, the competitivity that you need to establish. So there are several points, right? And I think the way to do this is to address the business, like, again, what I like to link, because technology is an enabler, right? It's not technology for technology. It's not that I want to have the most advanced core system just to show off, right? I need that. There's business behind that, business needs. So just like I brought it up, I think the best way is to bring up real cases that are well documented. For instance, at Celent, we have the model insurer where we document the innovative way of technology in the insurance industry that brings tangible business benefits. And I think that's where the conversation has to go. It's less from the technical part and more to the business side, where you can use examples like where the business is going, right? We talked about personalization. We talked about the need for customer segmentation, for pricing better, to reduce fraud that has a huge impact on your profitability as an insurance company, to enable new business models like the embedded insurance model. So I think you need to think out of the box in that sense and move away from just the pain points of doing things slightly better, like I said, which sometimes insurance companies may make that mistake. Oh, my reinsurance processes are too manual. I just need to have a new system to automate some of the process and improve how I establish the connection between my policies and the reinsurance companies. Yeah, that's a benefit, but that's probably the hardest way to make the case for you to improve. So the case is, Today, the market is dynamic. I need to be extremely fast in time to market. I need to personalize my service. I need to communicate in a personalized way with my customers. I need to have an ecosystem built here. I need to achieve growth by going into other industries, by having partners that can sell my products that are already, available in an API box where they can just easily plug and have a white label insurance product to be distributed by them. So I think you need to go through the business route of it and show the business that you may leave on the table if you do not do that now. So I think that's the route that I would go to a project management, to bring tangible and real case examples from the industry of the opportunities you're not able to touch because you're just facing a legacy barrier right there.
And so I'm considering that, as Fabio said, it might be overdue for many insurers to actually push the button and start doing the transformation. Yet in our conversations, we are often faced with concerns about not only cost and so on, but actually the risk of business disruption. So you might be on a growth track, you might be out there doing something you really like to continue to do, and you're concerned that doing a core insurance system transformation would disrupt your business. What assurance, what reassurance can you offer insurers for actually doing transformations using, for instance, IB Suite?
So I think the most important thing is that we talk a lot about system modernization, and that's what insurers focus a lot on. System modernization doesn't have to be a complete rip and replace immediately. You can do that gradually, which means you don't necessarily have to replace your core system overnight. I think with IB Suite we've designed things that we don't have to be the center of the universe first and foremost. That means that we can easily coexist, and we could even we could coexist where billing was to be done in another system or in another core system for a period of time, which means you can gradually change. That's really normally referred to as operating in a multi-core environment. And I think it becomes more and more seen out there that operating in a multi-core environment is one of the key things to reducing risks. You're actually not going to change your existing business. I think Fabio addressed this earlier as well, that you would do a greenfield approach first and start transacting new business while you would keep your existing portfolio on the old platform, and then gradually migrate whenever there's a time for it in the business, and so on and so forth. So the capability and the ability to coexist and not being the center of the universe, I think that is quite vital.
And that inherently in that discussion, when you coexist in multiple environments, then inherently is the discussion about should you adopt what the new platform is offering you, or should you try to adapt that to your existing ways of working? And Fabio, where are you on that discussion? Should you be ready to change your existing ways of working, processes, etc., to accommodate what the new platform is offering you, or should you be looking for something that is flexible enough to actually accommodate the ways that you are working right now?
I think, of course, we cannot say that you do not need to review your processes, right? Like that you just, of course, you're going to be looking for a change on the way that you operate. But I agree with you that a modern core system today may offer you the possibility for the system to adapt much more to you than in the past, that you need to adapt almost 100% to the new system, right? So I think that it's both ways. I think the as is and the to be of your business processes need to be reevaluated in such transformation process. But just like your guys were just talking about, it can be a gradual process. And if you look for a system that is modern enough, it can be flexible to adapt to your needs, to reduce the impact and the disruption of the way you do business on a daily basis.
Fabio, that's an excellent point, and I would like to repeat that because I think it's really important that the famous, the infamous adapt versus adopt discussion has actually changed with the new modern core systems, because it used to be, as you say, either or, but now the cost of adapting the new platform to your existing processes has actually been lower significantly. And so that has to be something that you are considering as part of the evolvement of IB Suite. So are you really embedding that thinking in the way that we develop our system?
I think it goes without saying that configurability is key to this, and bringing the power up to the business users to work with the platform. Because we've always, and a key to a project, if you don't focus on the business requirements, is essentially to say, okay, adopt the new system and don't try to adapt what you used to have, right? That's how it is. But the more you can actually configure in modern core systems today, the easier you can actually say, so what shouldn't we change? And what have we used to do because we only had that opportunity due to certain lack of capabilities. I think we see modern core systems today are much easier to operate, much easier to adopt to your business processes, much easier to change and configure. And so to us, it is about configurability. It is about not making it an IT project when you have to create a new business process or change a market offering and these kind of things.
Great. So Fabio, we only have a few minutes left, but I would like to tee up a new topic that we potentially can continue discussing in the comment field on the LinkedIn session, or perhaps when we have a chance to get together. But it's really, we talked about the time it takes to make the transformation. We talked about how to accelerate that. But actually one thing that we are spending a lot of time on is really how to reduce the time it takes to select a new platform. So before you even start doing the transformation, you do the migration, you do the implementation of a new system, etc., the time you spend on selecting between the options out there, how can you actually reduce that? And how can you ensure that you are selecting the right solution that meets your requirement? Do you have any advice for insurers on how to accelerate the selection process and ensuring that they're hitting the right mark as part of that?
Yeah, that's a fascinating topic. We could spend about a long time talking about it, but I'll try to be short. So I think that as time changes, there are things that becomes easier and harder, right? So in terms of, for instance, options that insurance company has, especially in a developed region like Europe, when they start to think, let's say I'm a P&C insurance company looking to replace my core systems, what are the core system vendors out there? There are a lot of options, right? I mean, dozens of systems. So I think what you need to do is first, of course, if you have access to companies like Celent that profiles those vendors, you can quickly have a list of what is available over there. But again, making analogies, just like a car, right? When you're going to buy a car, if you start to consider every single possible car that you can buy, it's going to be overwhelming. So I think the first thing is what you're looking for, right? You're trying to look for a world-class car. You're looking for, a mid-range popular, what type of car you're looking at. The same thing for a system, right? And that goes with the right planning that we're not going to go time to go through, but involves understanding what you're looking for. But I think that, in a basic way, you need to define very clear what we like to call knockout criteria, right? Those are not, the insurance companies sometimes have a difficulty on understanding that. This is not RFP requirements, right? That's for when you already have the vendors selected for the system selection process. Those are very, specific yes or no points, right? The vendor must have, I don't know, clients in production in my region, in my country. If you don't, you're excluded, right? The vendor, I don't want a global vendor that is much bigger than I, because there is, I'm a mid-size or smaller insurance companies, and the cultural fit will not be good, which is something that sometimes insurance companies tend to underestimate. So cultural fit is very important. So if I'm going that route, I don't want the largest insurance vendor core system out there. They're not going to pay attention to me as a small insurer in my country. So all those are just examples of what you need to do in terms of creating those criteria and apply them, very clear on your list. So pretty much is step one: open up to all possibilities, learn about what exists, and then reject, cut, eliminate without fear, and then you're going to select the provider and then implement. I think also an important aspect of our review is that you, differently from some of the cases we saw, we do not recommend that you do that you select a short list that is not really short, right? And you ended up with 6-7 vendors going through a very extensive and expensive system selection project. In our view, ideally, of course, if you apply your knockout criteria, you ended up with a single vendor, you have your selection made, but usually that's not the case. So instead, in our review, is that you reduce that list as much as possible, do a great scanning, a great knockout criteria exclusion, and ended up with maybe 2-3 vendors, and then you're going to submit those vendors into a very detailed process with proof of concept, with very important piece, which is reference check. And last but not least, do not only focus on functionality. We see sometimes insurance companies also, in our review, making that mistake that just thinking about that, there's all those other array of possibilities, like I said, cultural fit, stability of the vendor, how much the vendor aligns with your strategy, right? So there are several points that you should be making in order to define and optimize the process of selecting your short list of vendors and eventually the vendor that you would like to work with.
Excellent, Fabio. And as mentioned, this is a discussion we can continue for hours and hours. I know it's something you're very passionate about. It's something that we're very passionate about. We participate obviously in a number of these selection processes, and we learn something every time. And we certainly have an opinion on our own on things that work and things that might not offer too much value. But unfortunately, we don't have more time today. Fabio, thank you very much for taking the time this morning for you to participate. Søren, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to sit with us today. If you want to continue this conversation, you're very welcome to reach out to IBA, to me. I'm always interested in learning more about how to apply modern core systems in the real world and how to generate value for insurance companies. So feel free to reach out. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find my email address in the invitation, and I'm looking very much forward to continue the conversation. Thank you very much for joining, and hope to see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.